human and as a ring announcer. So it's round one in Hamburg of the interim IBO light heavyweight title fight. A fight that Gary and I both agree is a perfectly acceptable international light heavyweight title fight. Even if both are Russian, one makes his home now in Germany and one makes his home in Belgium. They've both lost a couple of fights. Timour Nikarkhoev, 23 fights, 21 wins, 14 quick, 2 defeats. Igor Mikhalkin, 24 fights, 22 wins, 10 quick, 2 defeats, 1 stoppage defeat, and that was last March in a title fight against Sergei Kovalev. We wait for the adverts to finish in Germany. We wait for the French referee to pull them together. Jimmy Lennon, the classy act from LA. Mr. Smooth from the beach. He's at his seat. It's the round one. Thanks for being with us here on Box Nation. My name is Steve Bunce. Gary Lockett is next to me. I'm expecting this to unfold slowly with lots of technical work, both looking to find shots and hopefully by about round 4 or 5 letting their hands go a little bit more. I'm assuming and hoping that's what happens, but it wouldn't be the first time that 2 Eastern Bloc fighters have parried their way to a long drawn-out chess match, Gary.
Yes, indeed. There's been quite a few of those over the years, I could say. But these two, good quality fight. Shouldn't have the interim title labelled, unfortunately.
It's unnecessary. Shouldn't maybe harsh. It just doesn't need it. It's a perfectly good if it was an eliminator.
Yeah, of course. I think obviously Mikhalkin losing to Kovalev last year. Perhaps bit off a bit more than he could chew. You know, that's not his class. But listen, that doesn't mean to say that he's not a class fighter. You know, he is a very good class. But obviously, Kovalev is more or less elite class, isn't he?
Yeah, and he needed to take that fight. Otherwise, he would have found himself just rotating through routine defence after routine defence. I thought he might have pushed Kovalev a little bit more, especially as we saw what happened later in the year. In those back-to-back fights, which were with Alvarez, which was so dangerous for Kovalev. Big test here for Timour because, in all fairness, a couple of defeats, one against an unknown guy, and once against a guy called Avni Yildirim, a guy we've seen at super middleweight get blown away, destroyed by Chris Eubank Jr. So, in all fairness, it's a test for him. He's the one that has to prove himself. Not that Mikhalkin has necessarily proved himself at this level, but there's a bit of pressure on Timour to back up, to back himself a little bit.
Yeah, looking down Timour's record, obviously he's got 14 quick wins and 21 wins, but the 2 defeats, they don't look very good on his record, do they? The 2 guys he's lost to, lost by retirement and stoppage, to 2 guys who don't really look that good on paper. Yeah,
when you actually analyse a fighter's record, it's always good to look at not just who they've beaten, but who they've lost to, and more importantly, and this is an asterisk attached to that, how they lost. Not afraid to let his hands go, but he's got a good defence, Igor, good southpaw defence, and you know what I mean by that. He's a good southpaw boxer, just a guy that happens to be southpaw. He uses it, I reckon.
Yeah, he does. Uses it well. Nice tight defence. Uses the jab well, left-hand cross, and he just tends to shift the weight back onto that back foot to make the missile and counter.
We're not quite sure what to do with the southpaw stance he's faced with here, because it's an elusive tool, southpaw, in addition to just being a southpaw. Not sure whether to let his right hand go, because he's let that go a few times and it's missed. And at the moment, jabbing directly into Igor's right hand leg. First round down, not a lot in it. I gave that to Igor. Falling short, he's making him fall short, Gary, when he throws the right hand, isn't he?
Yeah, he shifts the weight from the front foot to the back foot, makes Timour miss, and then comes with the counter, which is very clever. And it's the thing that most southpaws do really well.
Yeah, I missed that short right hand. That was a decent right hand there when he was leaning out of position. So we're a round in. I think Igor Mikhalkin just about took that round. Not a lot in. I would classify that as a classic first round between the pair of them. Exactly what I expected, and I don't expect a lot more from them. 2 or 3 rounds. Then I think we might start to develop into a fight. Not an instant bang up, but it might warm up into something fairly memorable. Timour does look like he wants to throw that right hand. He's looking to counter once he's allowed Igor to lead off with a jab or two, but he's throwing it a bit too short for my liking, because when he throws it long, he's overextending, and Igor's just reading it too well. He's reading it too well.
Yeah, that's a one-side advantage. You know, one of the many advantages a southpaw has. They seem to be able to see these long crosses coming, and they can just time them and then counter with their left. And he's doing it really well here, Igor. But he's doing it on the front foot as well.
Yeah, he's doing it completely over the front foot. He's doing it by pushing Timour back.
Yeah, he's a solid fighter, Igor. Good left hand again. Yeah, he's a good solid fighter, but you can see how Kovalev smashed him to bits. Yeah, definitely.
I think we'll start to see Igor's left hand coming into play slightly more as the fight unfolds, assuming it goes a few rounds. He's letting the shots go now. He's not really missed with the left once he's thrown the left. He's quite happy to use the right hand in all its variations, down to the chest there, then to the body. So down to the chest, then mixing it to the head. Then he's letting that left go. I think he's going to start finding the distance for that left hand. Because at the moment he's fairly wide stance, which is understandable. That allows him to counter comfortably, Gary.
100%, but he's standing too tall for it, Timour, as well. You know,
yeah, he's standing for it.
Igor can close his eyes and hit him with it at the moment, so he's going to keep throwing it, obviously.
So what does Timour need to do, Gary, as a coach? You know, your man's getting not necessarily picked off, but it's not good what you're seeing.
No, of course not. I think he's just standing a little bit tall, and he needs to start feinting rather than throwing his punches in straight lines with his chin up in the air. Start feinting, moving his feet, coming at angles, doing something a little bit different.
Because right now Igor just looks like he's closing that gap inch by steady inch, minute by steady minute, until he's in a position when he lets the 3 or 4 punches go, he'll be in range, and if they land.
Sorry, Steve, we just missed it there. He just used the angle there. He just stepped inside and threw a right hand, and he landed something a little bit different, and he caught him nice there, but just seems to be just a little bit too upright, back straight. We were talking earlier about the Germans and the way they match. I think with Timour, he's not been matched hard, and this is the thing.
The Belgians have looked after him, even when they managed to get him beat. That was a mistake in the fight against Joe Malonga. That was definitely not part of the script. 5-3-1. Joe's record was going into that fight. 2 rounds down, Igor. 2 rounds up. Bit of action from that particular round.
Yeah, he took a foothold in that round. I think he started gaining confidence, landed 5 or 6 really good, clean left crosses.
He's in no rush though, is he, Igor? Let's get that established. He's no rush to finish this in the 3rd or the 4th. His jab's his southpaw jab is only gonna open Timour up more and more.
Yeah, of course, and from a different point as well. I think he's got 10 stoppages in 20 odd fights, so he doesn't fight like a puncher. Gradually breaks the guys down, doesn't he? So he's definitely not in no rush, and he's on top at the moment.
Sorry about that. There's obviously a tube that runs through the back of the arena there. So it sounded like the central line had diverted. Round 3 in Hamburg for the IBO Light Heavyweight Championship of the World. The man in the white shorts is Timour Nikarkhoev, and the man in the silver shorts is Igor Mikhalkin. It's the interim version of the title. Mikhalkin, a previous title holder a couple of years ago. In control in the first 2 rounds. Timour needing Gary Lockett and I believe just to be a little bit slicker, maybe drop his shoulders and his chin and his head down a couple of inches. Igor doing everything right for a southpaw with some experience. The jab has been good. Pin perfect. He seems to be putting a bit more pressure on, staying over that front foot and moving forward, but looking to maybe let his hands go, Igor, here, Gary.
Yeah, and what he's doing is very clever, and it's going to break Timour's heart. I mean, he's on the front foot, and he's putting him under pressure, but every time Timour tries to counter, he's making him fall short, and he's countering him in return, so it's going to break his heart. It doesn't look to me like he's got an answer for it.
And what he's doing is he's making Timour work.
Yes, exactly.
His feet are making Timour work relentlessly. He's having to work at a great big pace, and not a pace where you're landing lots of punches, just to stay in the fight.
Well, he's not actually walking him down, but he's putting him under pressure with his feet, and he's doing it with a nice jab, but he's looking to counter. You know, he's countering off the front foot as well, which is very impressive.
And it's easier going forward than it is going back if you've got someone hitting you.
Of course. If someone's walking you down, putting you under pressure, you have to have the power to at least make them think. If you've got no power, which it doesn't seem to that Igor's bothered by his power, then he's in a world of trouble.
Well, in all fairness, it will take something for Timour to land something, a good shot, because he's being pushed back. He's throwing punches when he's falling, leaning over, falling, coming up short, and of course the power's being lost in the mistake.
And he needs to give them something to think about, something to make him think about coming forward. Because if he's coming forward all night and you're not giving anything to think about, then he's just going to keep on doing it, and he's going to slowly beat him up.
I think that was the point there. Igor led with a very lazy right to the body, intentionally, knowing he would draw fire.
Yes.
He threw 3 punches, Timour, all of them missed, and Igor countered with a left, which missed, but it could have so easily connected.
Yeah.
It was
It's
1,
clever.
2, 3, bang.
He's set in traps, though. You know, that shows a good fighter.
Igor Mikhalkin here, Mikhalkin here, live on Box Nation on Saturday night. Thanks for being with us. It's the first of our 2 title fights. This is an interim version of the IBO light heavyweight title. But Gary and I both agree it doesn't need a belt. This doesn't need a gaudy strap, doesn't need a bauble, doesn't need any diamond encrusted leather bits and pieces. It's a perfectly legitimate fight. Igor now 3 rounds up. Young Timour needing to do something to overcome what is a solid, clever and very smart performance so far by Igor Mikhalkin, the Russian based in Germany, who last year lost to Sergei Kovalev and who in 2017 won this title, or the full version of this title tonight. He's boxing tonight for the interim version of the IBO light heavyweight championship of the world. What a weight light heavyweight is. What a weight worldwide, with so many good champions and so many good contenders left, right and centre in Great Britain. What a list we've got. What a list we've got. Anthony Yard, Joshua Buatsi, Willie Hutchinson, and worldwide Dmitry Bivol, Sergei Kovalev, Golovchik. Almost an endless list, perhaps 15 genuine fighters. Igor Mikhalkin looking to put himself back in that mix.
A good win to win the IBO title over Thomas Hooshausen. Decent
was
fighter.
A good win, was a
Very
really good win, yep.
Not just a win, I think it was a landslide, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a landslide. It was a really good performance. I think that what you find with Mikhalkin, Gary, is that if he finds that rhythm and you don't break his rhythm and you therefore allow him to find his rhythm, that herky-jerky, leaning, falling, that's really effective.
Well, the wrong thing to do is to keep backing off on him. I think he's now got to fight fire with fire, Timour, and just stand his ground and have a little scrap with him, I think. I think that's the only way he's going to sort of deter him.
I think Mikhalkin has a little bit more power than perhaps his ratio 10 stoppers in 22 wins suggests. That's what my gut feeling, because he's not a man that goes looking for knockouts, a man that goes looking for wins.
That's right. He obviously breaks down opponents, and I think he's obviously fought in a higher class as well than Timour. So, you know, the 14 wins.
There's a nasty cut somewhere on the right-hand side of Igor's face, I believe. Timour's looking at it. There's blood everywhere. Let's see if we can catch this. Maybe we can try and find it. Is it up on his brow somewhere? Or maybe it's his right eye. I can't see for from here. We'll try and find that incident later on if the editors on site in Germany don't find it. We'll try and find it for you. There's a bit of blood floating about. He's already got a bit of blood on his back from it. So it's above the right eye somewhere, I think, Gary. I'm trying to look for it myself.
Are they?
Yeah, is it
Just above the right eye.
or is it the hairline where it's come down? It's a bit difficult to tell. Anyway, he's cut. Igor Mikhalkin is cut in the 4th round. He's won the previous 3. I believe he's won this round with his pressure, with his careful pressure, sensible pressure, but he's managed to pick up a wound somewhere on the right-hand side of his face above his eye. We'll see if we can get that verified during the minute break. We'll see if the corner... We'll watch the corner and see what they're doing, which eye they're concentrating on. I think it's up higher, isn't it, Gary? I'm not sure where that is now, that cut.
It might be on the head with the red blood running down.
That's what I thought. My initial thought that it was scalp.
Yeah, it looks like it. Scalp, yeah. We'll see when it
and in fact, it's not a blob of Vaseline on it from the previous round, is it? There's a big old lump of Vaseline. Maybe he picked it up in the earlier round. I can't remember any blood smeared on his face in that round. We come to the end of round 4 here in Hamburg. Steve Bunce, Gary Lockie with you in the Box Nation studio. Bernd Bonter there at ringside, of course, the man that held both Vitaly and Vladimir's hands and walked them through their careers. I think that's an old wound because I think that's Vaseline already on his head there, Gary. Can you see that?
Yeah.
So it's either an old wound or a wound we failed to notice in round 3.
Probably because there was no blood coming from it.
Absolutely. So they've detected that in the corner. They globbed it with the Vas, but it's managed to break free. Vaseline, of course, being legal to use. That man there has done nothing except wear the snazziest white satin tuxedo I have ever seen. I would love that. If they do that in my size, mister, I am wanting one. What a tuxedo.
And a horrible moustache as well.
There we go. They're dealing with it. So it's high on the hairline.
Seconds out, ringfrei zur 5. Runde, round 5.
So round 5, the cut not going to be a problem under any circumstances. We move into round 5. I make Igor 4 rounds up. Gary, would you agree with that?
I concur. I think he's beating him up without actually hurting him, isn't he?
Yep. And good fighters do that. They beat you up without hurting you. They stop you working without you realising it, and they slowly pick you apart, and you realise this guy that wasn't meant to be a banger is starting to hurt you after 5 or 6 or 7 rounds.
Yes, indeed. Break your heart, break your soul.
Absolutely. You don't start this fight like people did when they fought you, knowing that they can get dropped by either hand. You start this fight thinking, okay, I'll take a couple of rounds, get to know him.
I'm not going to be bothered by his power.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then that's a false sense of security.
It starts to get to you, yeah. If you're being countered like that, Gary, that hurts, doesn't it? You've just thrown a shot, it's missed, and you've walked into a sneaky little right hook counter. Not full power behind it, but that's a horrible shot to take, isn't it?
Of course, because the counters a lot of the time, they happen when you're throwing your punches, so it doubles the impact of the punch that the opponent is throwing. So, of course, yeah, they hurt.
So it's not a wild over-the-top left or right hand. It's a spiteful...
They hurt too.
By the way, they hurt too. It's a spiteful little 6 or 7 inch counter as you're moving forward and your opponent's made you miss and he's caught you with something. And if he's vicious, he'll smile. And if he's sensible, he'll just get on with business.
Just tends to fall in, doesn't he, Mikhalkin, with that left?
I think
he falls in, goes right over the front foot and falls in.
In this round he has, and I think what it is, I just was about to say, I think that Timour Nikarkhoev has created a bit more space in this round. So there's even further for Igor to go to. He's moved back quite a ways.
Yeah, he's done it more than once, though.
Exactly, that's true. But he's actively retreating here as opposed to being pushed back.
Yeah,
he's moving back quite a ways, isn't he?
Yeah, he is, but that's not the answer.
No, it's not the answer to win this.
Of course not. But it's like I was going to say earlier, obviously on paper, Timour, he looks the puncher. But obviously the different class opponents that they've boxed,
absolutely,
that's a false sense of security for us, I think. Looking at that record, 14 wins in 21 would suggest that he is a decent puncher. But I think they've boxed two different calibers of opponents.
In some ways, you can discount a lot of the punch statistics, i.e. I've stopped 11 out of my last 13. Well, if the 11 you've stopped are all fresh from a stoppage defeat themselves, I mean, I'm not saying discount them completely, but always analyse them, in my opinion, Gary, separately and differently.
Yes, of course.
I like my good fighters to beat good fighters before I start talking about us being real punchers or just heavy-handed.
And then, of course, you've got the kids then that have got 8-0 or 10-0 and they've only stopped 2. But really, they are big punchers. They've just boxed lots of journeymen who are good defences and,
absolutely,
and tough guys.
You know, I put Josh Warrington sometimes in that category.
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt.
You know, you look at Josh's record. Over 50% of the people he fought were really, really hard fights.
Yeah.
And Josh only had 3 or 4 absolute journeymen. The others were very competitive. And of course, the stats are rubbish, stoppage-wise, only a few stoppages. But then he was fighting really good guys, which, by the way, hasn't stopped. You know, his last 3 fights are just about as good as it gets in British boxing.
This is the thing. I mean, I got asked no end of times who's going to win out of Josh Warrington and Kid Galahad, and I just said, look, regardless of what I think, I'm never backing against Josh Warrington again, because Lee Selby and Carl Frampton, he proved me wrong twice, so I'll never back against him again.
No, Josh Warrington, big favourite, decent man, and a guy that has put together a great run. We're into round 6 here in Hamburg, live and exclusive on Box Nation. It's the IBO light heavyweight title. It's the interim version of that belt. That's what's on the line. But forget the bauble. Don't be dazzled by the diamonds of the belt from the sanctioning body that lives and breathes in Florida, just north of Miami. Don't be fooled by that. Don't be dazzled by that. Don't be bewitched by that encrusted little red number. This is a competitive fight on paper. Igor Mikhalkin has managed so far, going into the 6th round, to win every round. He's picked up a cut on the right-hand side of his head, but he's been boxing not necessarily beautifully, but very sensibly, and Timour's left himself a little bit open, although it has to say this has been the best minute so far of Timour's fight. He's let his hands go a little bit more, and he's pushing
him back.
Igor back.
That's what he needs to do. He needs to be on the front foot, because he's letting these rounds trail away from him as he's lost the first 5. And if he doesn't get on the front foot and start doing some decent work, then he's gonna keep continuing losing the rounds.
I mean, assuming there's no knockdowns, this is the round he has to win. Otherwise, he's in a situation where winning the rest of the rounds isn't going to be enough. Yeah. And he has lost the first 5. Hands down. He has pushed now. 90 seconds into this, the 6th round, he has managed to push Igor back. Igor looking slightly ragged, or is that just my imagination? Or a bit less composed than he did in the previous round.
Like the last couple of rounds, he keeps falling over the front foot all the time. And I don't know. Just seems a little less neat, doesn't he? He's a little more ragged.
Composed is the word. I think he's a little bit, as you say,
lacking a bit of composure.
Just a little bit, just getting a little bit. And that was a good little flurry there from Timour. Not meant to hurt, just meant to stop Igor working, and it did work. Gary, we might have a second half of this fight that delivers on what we were hoping it would deliver on.
Yeah, hopefully so. If he continues to be on the front foot, he's going to have a lot more success, as we've just saw the last 2 minutes.
But when you're on the front foot, you're taking the risks.
Yeah, of course, especially with a guy like Mikhalkin, who's a good counter puncher. Oh, good shot.
That was a good shot, high on the temple, but I thought that was a good shot. I thought his knees might have just buckled there.
Either that or he's off balance.
I think Igor sensed it as well. That's why he's let his hands go. Bit of blood around Timour's nose as Igor opens up. He hasn't had the best opening 2 minutes, but he's coming on strong here in the last 30 seconds with straightforward southpaw jabs and left hands like that. 5 or 6 of those powerful straight left, southpaw left, pushing Timour back onto the ropes, catching him through the guard there, sending his head back, sending the spray out into the Hamburg here, backed him up onto the ropes here, 6 punches, 7 punches, letting the hands go. The French referee looking in close. Timour, to his credit, firing back from the ropes. Well, that was a fantastic last 40 seconds there, Gary.
Excellent round. I just thought that Mikhalkin nicked it at the end there. I thought he was on the receiving end for a lot of the round, and then the quality then shone through at the end of the round.
And they were good shots. There were half a dozen really good shots there. I thought the one flurry when he trapped him on the ropes, I thought he was 4 or 5 punches away there from it being moving close to the end.
Well, also for Timour, you know, how heartbreaking must that be? He had the first 2 minutes and 15 seconds. He had the better of the round. The tide looked to be turning, and then Mikhalkin comes back and pinches the round with some classy combos.
Straightforward stuff. Nice jabs, but then letting that left hand go and not being afraid to let it go again, and then back it up with another shot.
Just took a rest for the first 2 minutes, didn't he? And
I think so. I think so.
And then turned on the quality at the end.
Seconds out.
It's a season man. There's some serious wounds and gashes and cuts around his eye. Looks like they've been stitched by someone using a knitting needle. Did you see the wounds on his left side? Fish gut if you're lucky. Fish gut and knitting needle only on my eye, sir. So round 7 here at the IBO interim title at light heavyweight. Igor Mikhalkin, a former IBO champion, a man that fought for the world title against Sergey Kovalev last year, and Timour Nikarkhoev, both have lost twice in their careers. Not necessarily fighting for their careers, but the winner of this, without a doubt, starts to circle in some very, very decent company. And with decent company comes good paydays.
Very important round here. I think obviously Timour had a little good go in the last round to get the round nicked away at the end. So can he maintain what he did in the last round, or is he going to fall to pieces? Very important round.
Well, he was sent from corner to corner, from rope to rope in the last 40 seconds there. Yeah. Bundled and hit and caught and hurt, stunned. I'm not necessarily suggesting he was close to stoppage, but he was certainly put under an awful lot of pressure. And Igor looked quite relaxed doing it.
This is quite annoying, though. You know, we saw in the last round that when he does have a go and throws his shots in combinations, then he does have some success, but now he's backing off again.
French referee there telling them not to turn their backs. Igor extending a right hand there, circa 1972, from any of the Soviet boxers. It's always good to see a little throwback to where we are at the moment. A boxing system, the old Soviet Union, which has in many ways kept professional boxing going for the last 10 or 15 years. The amount of champions they've turned out, the amount of challengers that have turned out from that system. Take the clock back 50 years and we wouldn't have had dozens and dozens of the memorable champions, and close to hundreds of some of the fights we've had courtesy of those Soviet boxers who have turned professional in the last 25 years. A fantastic short right hook there from the southpaw stance as Timour came forward. I love that particular hook. That's a lovely hook. I'm not going to try and give it a fancy name. It's just a short right hook as someone comes forward thrown from the southpaw stance.
Check hook?
Yeah, that's the fancy name that people give, and it's a perfectly good name, but it's...
No, it's not mine.
It's not one I use.
GB squad.
Yeah, they love that, and Floyd Mayweather loves it, and people love to talk about it online. It's just a counter as the guy comes forward. It's a counter hook.
Counter hook.
You call it check hook all day long if you like.
You kept that very simple there.
Yeah, it's just the short hook as you come forward. There's no need to make it too complicated.
Quiet around.
How would you go there? Was it the top? Did he do enough there?
Mikhalkin took it again. So I think he's won every round, to be honest.
He has won every round. 2 or 3 of them have been slightly more competitive, including that 6th, but I thought he still did enough in the last 40 odd seconds. You win a round overall, not because you've been in charge for 2 minutes.
Well, that's got to be the gutting thing for Timour. His best round was the 6th, but he still lost it, despite having some early success.
Seconds out, ringfrei zur Runde 8, Round 8.
Ian Alders just correcting us on Twitter, letting us know that the champion Sven Forling, who beat Murakurat, is injured, therefore unable to defend his title. So therefore this might be a pure interim title. Get on it, as they say in the trade. Lots of you talking on Twitter about that. So that seems to have been cleared up by Ian Aldous. That's why it's an interim title fight. Gary and I were talking more about the fact that this doesn't need a belt to still be a decent contest. Timour Nikarkhoev, the Russian based in Belgium, obviously trying to increase his work rate, but one of the prices you pay for increasing your work rate against quite an accurate, quite a very good southpaw counterpuncher is you get picked off. It's that simple.
Yeah, you take the risks. Once your hands leave your face, then obviously you're a sitting duck. And against a good counterpuncher like Mikhalkin, then you're going to get hit.
You know, he might very well be a risk-free operator, Mikhalkin, but what he does is, you know, he does it. It's high quality, not necessarily the highest quality, but it's high quality. It's awkward to overcome unless you've got a solid plan you can stick to, and you can start out early as well. You've got to start early.
I think he's good European class, isn't he? He just lacks that bit of quality to be world class. Yeah. Perhaps that bit of power, that bit of sharpness.
Well,
but he is a good class fighter.
Unfortunately, with the group of champions that are holding versions of the light heavyweight title belt, there's an awful long way between being a really good contender, one of the phrases that's not used that often, and one of the world champions at the moment. No shame in being a champion under one or two of those boxers are out there at the moment.
Well, there's a hotbed of talent at the moment, the light heavyweight division, and
absolutely,
it's Mikhalkin. You wouldn't really bet on him ever winning a world title with the current crop of champions, would you?
No, you wouldn't. But you know what? He'd be a perfect opponent for one or two of the light heavyweights coming up.
The guys coming up, yeah,
around the world who are trying to crack that level. And assuming he keeps up this boxing lesson tonight, I think that if he finds his range, he's awkward to beat.
Yeah, good on his feet, quite awkward. And a southpaw to boot. There's another cut there by the looks of the opposite side.
I think that's a different cut. Who's complaining about that? They're both complaining. So I think he's cut on the face, Timour, and I think that, let's have a look, see if we can see something. So he's not cut there. He's not cut there. It's the story of the fight. Back foot, take a step back, counter, let him miss, counter again. So now he's just got a bloody nose. So what was that cut? It looked like a cut on the left-hand side of Mikhalkin's face. So he's got another cut.
Yeah, just on the top of the forehead. So opposite side, yeah.
It's cut on the nose as well.
Seconds out, ringfrei.
Well, for a man who Refil has possibly won all 8 rounds so far, he's ended up with 3 loads of cuts. He's going to end up with 30 or 40 stitches in these gashes. Going home, be hard to convince his wife. No, honestly, darling, I won. Trust me, I did win. You should have seen the other guy.
One of those fights where he wins every round but comes out looking like the loser.
You should have seen the other guy. Didn't have a mark on him. So Igor Mikhalkin here on Box Nation. Thanks for being with us. We're in round 9 of 12 for the IBO. For the IBO light heavyweight title. Sven Forlin is unable through injury to defend his title, so this has been made for the interim version. Let's hope the winner of this can get it on with Sven at some point in the future. Sven beat Karo Murat, who fought for the belt that Igor Mikhalkin had to turn his back on when he got the opportunity to fight at Madison Square Garden against Sergey Kovalev. Sounds like a soap opera when I unroll the way this business works, because it sometimes does unroll like a soap opera. Igor has dominated this fight without really looking like a man that could stop his opponent. He's been in control, he's landed with the jab, he's brought in short right hooks as Timour has missed. He's mostly just dominated with the jab. Then when he wants to let the left hand go, he doesn't waste it. He lets it go. He's cut, though, in 3 places. Bridge of his nose, up above the hairline on the right-hand side of his head, and just below the hairline on the left-hand side of his head on his brow. Plenty of blood, and I don't really think it's bothering him. Timour still trying, coming forward, but falling mostly short, Gary. Is that fair comment?
Falling short, walking into counters. He's not as sharp as he was, obviously, because we're in the 9th round now, but I think, obviously, Mikhalkin's just sitting back now and picking him off with his nice counters.
He's been consistent, Igor. He'll mix the jab up, he'll throw it to the head, he'll go to throw the head, he'll slip it in underneath Timour's left elbow, and then he'll let the left hand go, and then he'll retreat away. If he finds and if he can make Timour miss, he'll counter with shorter shots in close. He doesn't take any risks, and he has mostly been, for almost the entirety of this fight, apart from a short period in this round and a short period at the start of the 6th, over his front foot and pushing back or backing up Timour. Slight difference between the two. When he backs off himself, Igor, he backs off with a little bit of style, a little bit of grace, keeps his shape, keeps his form, and then launches another attack. Occasionally does what we saw there, which was very un-Igor-like. Crosses his legs and tries to throw a left hand.
Yeah, puts all the weight on the right and falls off balance.
So do we give that round again to Igor?
Yeah, indeed.
So
looking very arm weary, isn't he?
Yeah, it's a closer round though, that. I mean, it's Timour does have a bit of youth on his side. He's what, 6 or 7 or 8 years younger. Let's see as we go forward.
He's having a go, but he's just not landing anything of significance, is he?
He seems to lack a bit of urgency. Look at those wounds. I wasn't joking about the wounds on his eyes. They're unbelievable gashes.
Yeah.
They're the worst. Look, they're like stage cuts. It's like what Apollo Creed gave Sly Stallone.
Seconds out, ringfrei zur 10. Runde, round 10.
Round number 10. We are now moving closer and closer to the magnificent Jimmy Lennon, taking control of the centre ring and raising one of these boxers' hands. It's the IBO interim light heavyweight title. The champion Sven Falling is unable through injury to defend his title, so this is the interim version. The idea is to keep titles active, to keep boxers working, and to make sure that the sanctioning bodies keep getting their sanctioning fee. Nothing wrong with that. That's just the way it works. We're in round 10, according to Gary Lockett and I. Igor Mikhalkin has just about won every single round. There's a solid argument to say he has. Perhaps 1 or 2 have been a little bit closer, but he has basically done what he pleased over his front foot, and even when he backs off, he's looked in control. He's hit Timour Nikarkhoev with jabs. He's slicked the jab underneath the lead left hand and then came whipped across left hands. He's not made too many mistakes. He's not taken too many risks. It's been, if not a quality boxing lesson, certainly a solid, good performance. If he was your fighter, you'd be very happy tonight, wouldn't you, Gary?
I believe so. Yeah, he hasn't done a lot wrong. You know, he keeps falling off balance, but other than that, very disciplined performance. He hasn't really got hit with a lot of clean shots. His jabs work well, crosses have worked well, and his assist, he's dramatically broken him down without, as I said before, without actually ever really hurting him. And it's a quality performance, and he just showed his class. And
sometimes, you know, you can have fights like this. It's a really good fight without there being loads of highlights. You're not going to fill a highlight reel with this, but you could show this to boxers on how to make people miss, how to counter, how to use your southpaw jab properly, how to use it properly.
Yeah, 100%. Textbook, really, today, Igor. And he did have a really good 6th round, didn't he?
Timour Nikarkhoev certainly won the first 2 minutes of the 6th
That's
round.
Right.
But then,
sorry, I made a mistake then. What I'm saying is the round was a very good round. It was won by Igor at the end.
Yeah, he really put him under a lot of pressure there.
That was a good round. That was the best round of the fight.
So Igor nursing cuts and wounds and still dominating with some sensible boxing, clinching if he needs to as we come to 36 seconds of round 10. Just 2 full rounds to go here in Hamburg in the interim IBO light heavyweight title fight. If you're watching on Box Nation, thank you very much indeed. Still turning out, still tuning out, still putting out the fights from around the globe. If there's boxing, Box Nation have cameras there. That's generally the way things work. Igor Mikhalkin, who's been on Box Nation several times in the past, comfortably, and that is the right word because it's a competitive fight, but he's winning the rounds.
Left cross again.
Very good left
point.
cross right on the bell there. Yeah, very
beautiful.
good cross. That's another round I'm going to give to Igor. Certain of these rounds have been a lot closer, perhaps. Some have been closer than others. But I just feel this is one of those situations sometimes, Gary, when you give a round to the guy who's been losing all the rounds because it was his best round. He didn't win the round. It was just his best round for 5 rounds. So you give to him.
And I think that's partly because Igor he's settled down a little bit now. I think he's given up hope of trying to stop him, so he's just sitting back, and he's invited him in, I think, a lot.
He's doing what he has to do.
Stitched around.
It is indeed stitched around in a
Seconds
corner.
out.
He's working tonight. He's earning his money.
Round
I hope
11.
it wasn't stitched that worked on those 2 cuts on the eye, or certainly didn't do the needlework afterwards.
Yeah. Probably not. I think I'm safe in saying that.
Big stitch in the corner. 11th round, fellas. Just 2 rounds to go. Timour needs more than big rounds. He needs several knockdowns and or a stoppage to turn this around. 34-year-old Igor Mikhalkin won a version of the world title, the IBO version, when he beat Thomas Oosterhuizen back in 2017, and that was a good performance, a solid performance, a real performance, a boxer's performance. And this in many ways is what this is. This is a proper fight, a competitive fight that one man's dominating, and that might sound like a contradiction, but it's not.
Yeah, he's not winning the rounds massively. He's just systematically outboxing him.
He hurt him with an earlier left hand here, and then he went left hand crazy for about 30 or 40 seconds. He doesn't look as comfortable here, Timour, as he's looked throughout the fight. In fact, he looks his most uncomfortable.
Yeah, I think his heart's broke now. He's been on the back foot all night. Not really landed anything of any significance,
so
apart from the odd pot shot.
So, Gary, sorry for interrupting. Would you have your fighter here finish it if he comes back at the end of the 11th round? What are you going to do? It's the last 3 minutes. Does he go for glory, or does he just do what he's done for the previous 11?
It's hard because obviously Igor, he doesn't fight like a puncher, but I mean, I always want my boxer to get a stoppage, always. So I'd be pushing him on and saying that the guy's ready to go. But
might you have been saying that from the last? Might you have been saying that the last few rounds?
Yeah, possibly. But he's got some resolve, hasn't he, Timour? He has shown a lot of bottle.
Over, is he?
No, of course not. He's shown a lot of bottle. He's hung in there, and he is trying, but he's just not up to the quality of Igor.
Yeah, it's that simple. It happens. It's not a disgrace.
Of course not. There's no disgrace in losing to this guy. He's fought for the world light heavyweight title.
I'd like to have seen Igor let that left hand go a little bit more, because the ones he has let go, I mean, I almost seldom miss with that left hand. It's been a perfect shot.
Yeah, but again, I mean, I've said this a couple of times. He doesn't fight like a puncher. So when it goes past maybe 5 or 6 rounds, perhaps he gives up hope of getting the stoppage.
Yeah. And concentrates on the boxing.
Concentrated, because like you said, he did go left hand happy in the earlier rounds up to about round 5, and then he settled down into his boxing ever since. And after about round 6, the good round, he settled down into his boxing, and he's kept it a little bit more basic.
Well, that's another round for Igor Mikhalkin here. At times they're pushing Timour Nikarkhoev back. Not just with the good jab, not just with the great follow-through, straight left southpaw hand, but also with some body shots, several of the body shots. It's been a story of an educated jab. Richie Woodall would love this fight tonight. Some of the highlights from that, the 11th, the penultimate round. And just to say thanks to David Duncombe, who sent in a tweet, I asked for a guy that fought the final eliminator, then his next fight fought for the world title. And David reminded me that Leon Walsh, when he beat Andrei Klimov, I think that was at the Harrow Leisure Centre, then his next fight fought for the IBF title against Gervonta Davis. And Gary had said it would be for the IBF title. It was. I think that was a final eliminator. I remember talking on TV that night and saying, you don't see final eliminators anymore, do you? And it was a final eliminator. Well done, David Duncan. As I said, no T-shirts tonight, no books tonight. But thank you very much indeed. Keep those tweets coming in at Big Daddy Buns. We do have one more fight to come after this. Tulani Mbengi defending his IBO welterweight title against Sebastian Formella. That follows this fight. It's the 12th and final round. Igor Mikhalkin. Gary and I feel as a comfortable lead, dominated in most of the rounds. 3 or 4 of the rounds have been a little bit trickier, perhaps, but he's done it with his jab. He's done it by dropping in that southpaw left hand, and he's done it by movement, he's done it by skill, he's done it by class.
Yeah, good feet, good upper body movement, an educated jab, a good cross, and loves to switch the weight from the front foot to the back foot to make the opponent miss. Very good textbook boxing in a lot of areas.
And sometimes we overlook that. Earlier on tonight we saw 2 live bang-ups, straightforward bang-ups. Nikola Milacic taking care of Kai Kozawa very quickly, and Eric Pfeiffer forcing Epifanio Mendoza to retire after 2 rounds. Those were glorious pieces of matchmaking. That's a nice way to put it. I was being very politically correct with that. They were glorious pieces of matchmaking. This has been a real fight. It's been a good fight, even if one man has dominated most of it. The younger man, Timour Nikarkhoev, has not given up and has seemed to, if you don't mind me saying so, it's like he still believed he could do something, pull something out.
Yeah, he's kept going. With having very little success, he's kept going. He's not a bottle job, is he? You can see that. He's come to fight, as they say on the posters. He has. I mean, he's not getting hit and hurt badly. So he's not really having anything to quit for, to be honest. But he's done okay. But he's just not up to this class, like we said earlier.
But he has been picked off in just about every round, and he's been hit with just about every shot. I don't believe in punch stats, as you know. I think they're garbage. Even though I respect the people that compile them, I've got nothing wrong with that. But I have a real problem with people saying to me he landed 77% of his power shots. That's absolutely rubbish.
Yeah, of course it is. We know just by watching. We know who's going to fight.
Absolutely. But what I would say is that he's hardly missed a shot, Igor Mikhalkin. He is, if he throws 8 punches, 7.5 of them land. I like that. He does not waste his punches.
He doesn't waste. He's pretty good at making them count, isn't he?
And even if they're not full-blooded shots, they don't have to be. If you're about to throw a shot and suddenly you get hit with a half jab in the face, it doesn't have to be full-blooded. You still can't throw the shot.
That's right.
So the final 20 seconds of this contest here, the first 12-round contest of the night. We have one more of these coming up. Tulani Mbengi defending his IBO welterweight title against unbeaten German Sebastian Formella. That's coming up. This is the final closing seconds of Igor Mikhalkin's IBO interim title fight against Timour Nikarkhoev. I think he's done enough, Igor. I know he's done enough, Igor, to take that on a wide point decision. But as I said to Gary a few moments ago, there were always a couple of judges who think, well, you know what, that wasn't a bad round that Nikarkhoev had. That's his best round. I'll give him that one. I think you could be harsh and brutal and say he didn't win any of the 12. But bizarrely, he was still competing in most of the 12.
I think he did buzz him every now and again, but not enough to sort of make his legs go and drop him, was it?
Absolutely. I mean, there was a couple of times he caught him, and we thought maybe he'd shook him up.
The beginning at the end.
Yeah.
But he hung in there, didn't he?
Good performance by Igor Mikhalkin. I mean, I like that. That to me is a classic European stroke Eastern European performance. I like it. Doesn't put a foot wrong. A good guy to test people. And I can think of some British boxers that would benefit from a test against him, to be honest with you. I really can, because I like him. I think he's clever. I think he's probably got some deceptive power, and if you were to be open and leaving yourself exposed, he might clip you he might clip you a little bit.
That would be a good test for a couple of these guys coming through.
Absolutely.
Definitely. When I say coming through, I don't mean coming through. I mean on the cusp of world class.
So that fight's over. Jimmy Lennon Jr., the great Los Angeles, I'll get it in a moment. The great Los Angeles MC, great human being, great Los Angeles MC will be coming, putting them together in the middle of the ring, and he will be reading out the result. Well done, Stitch. You've got plenty of work to do backstage.
Ladies and gentlemen, after 12 rounds of action, we have a unanimous decision. Here are the score totals. Judge at ringside, Leszek Jankowiak, scores about 119 to 109. Judges Mateo Montella and Rocky Young both scored about 120 to 108. All three in favor of the winner. He is now the interim IBO light heavyweight champion of the world, Igor Mikhalkin.
So there you have it. A good night's work for Igor. Gary and I unanimous in agreement with 2 of the 3 officials at ringside in Hamburg. One more fight to come from Hamburg. You've been with us since 7 o'clock. Thanks for being with us here on Box Nation. We'll take a short break now. When we come back, it will be the 4th and final